even if we had multiple contemporaneous claims of the miracles of Jesus, this would not be good enough, because miracle stories abound even in the 21st century. The devotees of the South Indian guru Satya Sai Baba ascribe all of the miracles of Jesus to him. He reads minds, he foretells the future, he raises the dead, he was born of a virgin. Okay, Satya Sai Baba is not a fringe figure. You might not have heard of him, but they had a birthday party for him a few years ago, and 1 million people showed up. There are vast numbers of people who think he's a living God. Okay, so Christianity is predicated on the claim that miracle stories, exactly of the kind that today surround a person like Satya Sai Baba, become especially credible when you place them in the pre-scientific religious context of the first century Roman Empire, decades after their supposed occurrence, as attested to by copies of copies of copies of ancient Greek and largely discrepant manuscripts. We have Satya Sai Baba's miracle stories attested to by thousands upon thousands of living eyewitnesses, and they don't even merit an hour on cable television. And yet you put a few miracle stories in an ancient book, and half the people on the earth think it a legitimate project to organize their lives around them. Does anyone else see a problem with that?
So we've got lots of distant galaxies, we know how far they are away, we know how fast they're receding. What we find is something called the Hubble law, and it's basically very simple. It says that the further a galaxy is away, the faster it's flying away from us. Now, how are we to interpret that? I mean, you might naively say, well, does that mean we're somehow at the centre of the universe and everything's flying away? Well, no, actually. If you think a little bit more, if you think, for example, about baking bread, if you get a lump of dough and put raisins in it and stick it in the oven, then the bread expands. So all the raisins move away from every other raisin. If you were sat on one raisin, what you would see is the Hubble law, exactly the Hubble law. You'd see the ones close to you moving away more slowly, the ones further away moving away quicker, because the bread is all stretching. All of space is stretching at a constant rate.
But I don't think we have to be so polarized. I mean, I don't go around advertising my atheism all the time. Anybody asks me, I tell them. I don't think it's that important, quite frankly. I'm not a militant atheist. In fact, I have a lot of the church-going friends. I even go to church myself on occasion.
You go to church? Where?
In New England. I was raised a Congregationalist, and I...
You were raised a Christian?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Did you think
I went to Sunday school, and I learned the hymns, and I still can recite some psalms, I'm pretty sure. Sure.
Did you think that the life of Jesus was the greatest story ever told, as many of us believed at the time?
I thought it was I thought it was a wonderful story. Yes.
What happened?
I didn't believe the supernatural part of it.
Even then, even as a child?
I can't remember. I guess I did for a while. But as soon as I thought about it seriously, I rejected that. Sure.
When did you become an atheist? What caused the shift?
There was no dramatic shift. I was, I suppose, a teenager, thinking about what made sense and what was plausible, and I saw through other supernatural things just fine. I didn't see any reason to believe in poltergeists or any of the other crazy supernatural stuff, in astrology or trance channeling or anything like that. And I thought, well, I don't see any reason to believe these stories just because they're several thousand years old.
The amazing thing is that every atom in your body came from a star that exploded. And the atoms in your left hand probably came from a different star than your right hand. It really is the most poetic thing I know about physics. You are all stardust. You couldn't be here if stars hadn't exploded, because the elements, the carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, iron, all the things that matter for evolution, weren't created at the beginning of time. They're created in the nuclear furnaces of stars, and the only way they can get into your body is if the stars were kind enough to explode. So forget Jesus. The stars died so that you could be here today. Okay? And anyway, we have seen people's morality, if you want to call it morality, change. Slavery might have been okay because you might have believed that certain groups were inferior or not human. Science has told us that's wrong. You might have believed, as almost all religions do, that women are chattel. Science has told us that's wrong. You might have believed that homosexuality is evil. But science has told us that all mammalian species have homosexuality. There's nothing unnatural or evil about it. So to have a morality without science is empty.
People say, well, have you found life yet? No. Well, that's like going to the ocean. This has been said before, taking a cup of water, scooping up and saying, there are no whales in the ocean, Here's my data, You need a slightly bigger sample.
It means that I don't have the presumption to say there's absolutely no God. I can't prove it.
Right.
But what I can say is I certainly wouldn't want to live in a universe with one. The universe is far more exciting to me and more enlightening and more invigorating without a God. It's the idea that people can somehow find spiritual solace in the idea that they are being controlled by some cosmic puppet maker versus the idea that we have this brief moment in the sun and the meaning in our lives is one we create. And we have this great ability to think about the universe. Let's make the most of our brief moment in the sun. It's the central question of science, to try and understand why the universe is the way it is and make predictions about it. And to me, the fact that we've come so close to understanding the entire universe and its origins is just remarkable. I can't imagine why people wouldn't want to celebrate that and why they'd want to be afraid of that knowledge. Some people would rather that their children not know how the universe works.
A lot of people, actually.
For fear that it will affect their faith, then no. And what a disservice to children. And in fact, in that sense, I would have to say, agree with Richard Dawkins, that in that sense, much of religion is child abuse.
The fact that pi, right?
Let's say the numbers together. 3.145926.
We got a few.
That's pretty good. That's a nerd fest.
We got a geek thing going on over there.
Not bad.
The fact that you take a circle of any size, a circle the size of the universe itself, and divide it by its own radius, and you get that number, that's beautiful. I have to pause, and I get misty thinking of this. I'm sorry, that's just another one, that the atoms and molecules in your body are traceable to the crucibles in the centers of stars that manufactured these elements over its lifespan, when unstable, on death, exploding its enriched guts across the galaxy, scattering it into gas clouds that would ultimately collapse and make a star and have the right ingredients to make planets and people. Which means we are part of this universe. As I've said many times, and this goes back, not only are we in the universe is in us. That is a profound concept. And I think it's the greatest gift that astrophysics gave culture in the 20th century.
The one thing that I think is really dangerous in many religions is that it gives people a gold-plated excuse to stop thinking.
To stop thinking.
To stop thinking. To say, I don't have to think about that because my religion says this is right, this is wrong, it's as clear as that, it's black and white, I don't have to think about this anymore. It's just a matter of faith. Ooh. And we honor that. We say, oh, it's a matter of faith. I think we have to stop honoring people for stopping thinking.
Of course religion is outdated in the 21st century. Most religious people, to respond, it's true that you may get many people saying they're religious, but none of them, in the first world at least, in the developed world, to first approximation, actually believe the doctrines of their faith. They like to be religious. They want to believe, to use something from the X-Files. They want to believe in believing. So that Catholics don't really believe that when a priest holds a wafer, it turns into the body of Christ. No one really believes that nonsense. I have, in the last week, spent more time talking to Jewish atheists than I can count. Most of the Jews I know are atheists, and they say it's perfectly reasonable to be Jewish atheists because there's other aspects of the Jewish religion they like. So the point is that the doctrines of religion are outdated, and that's for good reason. They were created by Bronze Age or Iron Age peasants who didn't even know the Earth orbited the sun. So the wisdom in those books is not wisdom at all. And people take the wisdom. In fact, we've actually learned something over the last 20 centuries, and science has taught us how the world works. Now, for science, the interesting thing as a scientist is that God is completely irrelevant to science. Most scientists don't spend enough time thinking about God to even know if they're atheists, because they try and understand how the world works, and God never enters into it. It's just completely irrelevant. And in fact, the more we've learned about the natural world, the more we've learned that you don't need any divine intervention to explain anything. As far as morality is concerned, and the person you want to be, which is really what I think is the heart of what religion, when religion provides many things for people, and we can't deny that. The question is, how can we take the things that people need, community, support, hope, and use the real world to build those quantities? Because religion, if you base your beliefs and your actions on myths that are incorrect, you're inevitably going to take irrational actions. And so what we want to do is what science does, which is force people's beliefs to conform to the evidence of reality rather than the other way around, and not assume the answers to questions before we even ask them, and use the rational world to build a global society, not an exclusionary society, but a global world where people can live together based on the reality that we're all humans sharing this planet, and we need to work together to build a better place. A morality based on rationality and not outmoded religious beliefs.